Welcome to Podcast Suck, a podcast about starting a podcast, where we dive headfirst into the wild, wacky, and sometimes frustrating world of podcasting. If you've ever sat down with a microphone, hit record and thought, what on earth am I doing? Or if you're just curious about the magic behind your favorite shows, then you're in the right place. You're ready for laughs, insights, and a whole lot of what not to do advice as we embark on this podcasting journey together. Let's dive in. What's happening, podcasters? Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, wherever I may be greeting you. If you are just joining us, this is the very first episode you've listened to, and you are actually starting from the beginning of starting a podcast, you're going to want to back up about 6 episodes. They're quick, short, to the point, but they do go in order of what at least our process is for starting a podcast. So I always mention that at the beginning of each episode. It's okay. Stay here. Listen to this episode. Just make sure you go back and start at the beginning because we're not that far in. The first, I'd say, 13 to 15 episodes are going to be our entire process that we teach here at the Podcast Launch Lab to go from idea to iTunes in 90 days or less, like we always like to say. So today's episode, last episode was all about structuring your podcast episode. This episode is all about your recording space. Sebastian, where do I record? Do I need a studio? Should I rent one? Do I need to go in one? Do I need to build one? The answer to all those questions are no. You can start a podcast with your iPhone in a very quiet space like your closet. I'm not even kidding. I used to cut tracks and voiceovers in the early days of podcasting, probably circa 2011, 2012. I had a walk-in closet. It was the most aesthetically, what's the word I'm looking for? Not aesthetically. I'm going to get back to that. It has to do with like the perfect sound space, nice and muffled. I felt like I was, in fact, in a recording studio. I'm going to figure out what that word is before the end of the episode. We'll circle back. I always pick up right where I left off when I finally do, when it does come to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I was saying. So pardon the interruption. Adding a little humor in here. I'm a comedian. I didn't know if you knew that or not. I think I'm funny and my mom thinks I'm funny. That the rest is all subjective. So, all right, back to the lecture at hand. I think that's a song. Your recording space. Where should I be recording my podcast? In the quietest space you could possibly find. But Sebastian, I want to set up a consistent space that I have available to record in. So an area of a home office, area of your house, apartment, loft, office, whatever it might be, find that space. I always like to say the sweet spot's between like 3 by 3 or 3 by 4 little area, 3 feet by 4 feet. Making sure that the background is aesthetically appealing. That's the proper way to use that word, or that phrase rather. So, maybe a floating shelf with a book or a plant on it, or maybe you get we have some peel and stick wannabe brick here in the studio. Looks like brick. It's just not. It's peel and stick brick. That's what they should actually call it. All this stuff can be found on Amazon. Just type in wall decorations, stick on wall decorations, peel and stick wallpaper. But you do want to set yourself up with at least, we've talked about equipment already, but you at least want a ring light. You at least want an HD camera. You don't need a big expensive camera, an HD webcam or a reputable brand like Logitech will do just fine. And then just make sure that the background, you don't want a window behind you. Well, maybe if it's nighttime and the blinds are closed, or it's daytime and the blinds are closed, it's never good to have natural light behind you. You want natural light in front of you. So wherever you're choosing your space, if there's a window in that room, try to make your space so that you're facing that window. You want that daylight as much as possible. Daylight's always the best light. If you're recording at night, of course, a ring light will get it done, or a box light, or the other gazillion options that are available on Amazon. I'm going to put the ring light, the webcam, and then again, a USB mic that I recommend from Audio-Technica. It's like $59, and you're literally off to the races. I am confident there's a place and space in your office, condo, studio, apartment, wherever, where you can find 3 by 3 feet, put a little workstation. Heck, I've even recorded before I didn't even have like a workstation set up and I needed a muffled space. I'll never forget in the spot that I'm in now isn't the biggest closet in my bedroom. But if I set up a TV tray and I talk into my closet, it's almost as good because I have tile floors throughout, so it can be kind of noisy. But my bedroom has a big rug, and it also has a closet that I talk into. So, like, I'm just trying to paint a picture for you so you understand there are several different ways to be able to set up your recording space without having to go to a studio, rent a studio, set up a studio. So many people open studios, create studios, build, not doing anything with it. Just sits there, just looks good, strokes the ego. I come from a practical perspective, and that is, let's just get into a space that's functional. It's quiet, so important. Good lighting, or I can at least set up my ring light in the area so that I'm well lit. I want to look good. I want to sound good, and my camera and my light help out with all of that. Also, looking good, the background contributes to that process. Don't overthink it. You'd be surprised what a little floating shelf, a shelf you just looks like it's floating on the wall, a couple of books and a little tiny plant, little cactus, and you're off to the races. It doesn't have to be that specifically. But don't overthink this whole process of where do I need to record. You're just begging for more analysis paralysis, which none of us need. We just need to take massive action and get consistent with that action that we're taking and justify our reason for what we're doing through being consistent. I know that's a little bit of a tongue twister, but we're justifying our idea of starting a podcast by committing to doing the work. If you're committed to doing the work and you stay consistent with it, it's completely justified. You're like, that's why I do it, because I'm committed, as you should be. Because when you're committed and consistent, even when you don't see it, what's the quote from Martin Luther? You don't need to see the whole staircase, just need to see the first step. Same applies with your podcast. So don't overthink this process. Find a quiet space in your house, home, condo, studio, office, wherever. And then when you get really, 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 really good at podcasting and you got some momentum and you're like, I got this. I've been at this for 12, 15, 16, 18, 24 months. We're catching some stride. Let's upgrade our game a little bit. Maybe we'll build a studio in the extra office in the office. Maybe we'll build a studio in the treehouse in the backyard. Whatever it might be. But crawl, walk, run. Get in there, do the work, stay committed to the work. Justify to yourself that I'm doing this because I'm committed to doing it. And then you can upgrade as you go. HD webcam, ring light, decent audio, decent lighting. Don't overthink it. When I say all of those things I just listed right there, might cost you $150 total out the door. Probably get it less. So that's it for this episode. So to answer the question again, where should I record my podcast, Sebastian? Do I have to go to a studio? Do I have to rent one? No, you don't. You have to create one in your own space. Just make sure you look good and you sound good. And the space can be 3 by 3, 3 by 4, 4 by 4. You don't need an entire space. Even if you had a whole room, you're not going to use the whole room. We have an 11 by 14 square foot space here at the studio. Not a gigantic place at all, but there's a set in the corner. It might be 4 feet by 3 feet, maybe, if I'm exaggerating. Don't overthink it. You got this. Questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns about this episode, any of the episodes on this show, please send me a DM on Instagram. It's Podcast Suck. That's 2 S's, podcast plural, at Podcast Suck. My link is in the description of this podcast episode. Hit me up. I do respond to each and every one of you lovely people. I'm Sebastian Rusk over on LinkedIn and Facebook, obviously. So you can find me anywhere. I'm here for your feedback. I'm also here to answer more questions. I got one goal and one mission, and that's to see you step into a completely different version of yourself because you made a conscious decision to start a podcast. That's all that I care about, that you start, and more importantly, that you continue. Talk to you next time. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way we get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review and share the show with someone you know should start a podcast or may already have one. And remember, podcasts suck if you don't have one. Until next time, friends.